Many African artists create sculpture using the lost wax casting technique. Yoruba artists in the palace of the king of Ife cast very beautiful naturalistic brass portraits of the kings in the 13th century. The famous casters of the city of Benin cast memorial heads, plaques, and a variety of other royal arts in brass until the British destruction of the palace in 1897, and have continued to cast sculpture to the present. The Mosi of Burkina Faso and many other West African peoples have cast small sculpture, memorial portraits, and equipment for their horses from the 15th century through the beginning of the 21st. Finally, the Asante, whose work we see here, have cast brass gold weights, small figures, containers, and other jewelry and ornaments of brass and gold for centuries.
When Asante was captured by a war between Asante and the Denchras, he was praying worry with his wife, and Ashanti captured and cut his head.
And cut his head off?
Yes.
The king of Denchira?
Denchira, yeah. Before you cut it, you must...
I visited this small sculptor's workshop just west of Kumasi in Ghana in 2004. The artists were kind and hospitable enough to give me a tour and an introduction to the technique. The process begins when the artist models a figure or piece of jewelry from beeswax. He is careful to include all of the fine details because the completed work will look just like the wax model. The completed wax piece is then covered with a fine layer of clay mixed with ground charcoal. This is called the cream coat. When the first coat is dry, the artists cover it with a thicker coat of coarser clay. Several small pieces may be joined together in one larger mold to make the job of casting go faster. They are joined by thin wax sprues, which connect each piece to a common spout into which the molten brass flows. So you can join them together. So now you're covering the sprues as well as the model inside, so everything is covered.
So we put all the...
They then heat up the wax inside the mold next to a small fire, causing the wax to melt and run out of the mold into a shallow basin, or in this case a small pit, where they can collect and reuse it. Actually, the wax is not lost.
And fetch into the hole and enter the bowl on this crucible.
Okay.
And set it.
A second hollow container is fashioned of clay, and this is filled with scrap brass, copper, and tin. The artists then join this crucible filled with brass to the empty clay mold and seal the joint with fresh clay.
And you get this shape. You see, this place is the brass and the wood.
All of those shapes already have an empty mold, and they have a container with brass.
Brass, yes. Oh, this one.
Okay.
We have set brass on it.
The casters fill a large furnace with empty molds and crucibles, with the crucible part down where the brass can melt. The entire load of molds is filled with charcoal and lighted. The casters use an electric bellows to pump lots of air into the firing so it gets very hot. Late in the evening, when the molds are red hot and the brass is melted, the casters pull them from the fire with iron tongs and roll them down a small hill. At this point, the molten brass fills the empty space left when the wax was melted away. The casters arrange the molds with the crucible up and the void down, to fill with brass and to cool. The next morning, the casters break open the molds, remove the new brass piece, cut off the lines that carried the molten brass, and clean and polish them for sale. You're just washing them in water?
Yes.
But then you're brushing them with a wire brush?
Yes.
And that removes all of the old clay?
No. You are moving on the crane. No, now you are turning the brass.
Okay.
So now I want to make cream.
Okay.
So you are washing with
Oh, lemon.
lemon.
Okay.
Yes.
So lemon juice to clean
yes,
off.
Yes.
Okay.
So after lemon, you are using the brush and make cream.
See, they are brass. No wax. Wax. It's ready to cook.